So, 1.5 years after you decided the borders after the Second World War, you were now able to decide the borders following the First World War. I was hoping for a higher turnout than last time, but turnout actually decreased from 14 to 12. But that is still something. Emperor Tigerstar and Possible History, who did such community projects before me, both did the First World War as well, and you might want to check them out. Like last time, I only cover territorial changes today, and next week I'll do the political ramifications, and in case of a tie I'll follow the less historical path. And now without further ado, let's begin. Let's first talk about Germany and the Treaty of Versailles. With a 50% majority you voted in favor of France getting back Alsace-Lorraine, but German concessions would pretty much stop at that. Thanks to a narrow 41.7% plurality, the Sauerland Protectorate would not be formed, and instead remain with Germany. 50% of you also didn't want the Rhineland to be occupied, and 58.3% for the western border not to be demilitarized. The first tie broke out in Luxembourg, where 50% wanted it to retain its independence and 50% wanted it to go to Belgium, and since I follow the alternate path here, Belgium annexes Luxembourg. But in exchange, Belgium won't be getting it in Malmedy, as 2/3 of you wanted Germany to keep it. Just like Belgium, Denmark leaves Versailles empty-handed, as 50% of you wanted Germany to keep all of Schleswig-Holstein in its entirety. In the east, with 83.3% you voted for the Memmeland not to be split from East Prussia, with 75% for Germany to keep Holstein and Glatz. With 66.7%, you wanted Germany to keep Danzig and Upper Silesia, and with 58.3%, you wanted Germany to keep Posen and West Prussia. Lastly, Germany kept East Prussia with just 41.7%, with the runner-up, Poland at 33.3%. Internally, you neither wanted Hanover nor southern Germany to be split up from the rest of the country. In terms of colonies, Cameroon, Southwest Africa and Togoland all gained their independence as independent African states, all with 41.7%. East Africa, meanwhile, is ruled by Paul von Lettow-Vorbeck, who remained undefeated until the German surrender in our own timeline. Lastly, the Pacific, Japan got New Guinea, German Pacific Islands and Tsingtao with 41.7, 83.3 and 54.5% each. With that, Germany only lost Alsace-Lorraine on the mainland, while in the colonial front, the Western Allies failed to get any German African colony, while Japan got everything in the Pacific. Next is Austria. Regarding the question of Bukovina, you were split a third towards Romania, a third towards East Galicia and a third split along ethnic lines. Of these, the most historically inaccurate one is the East Galician one, and so Romania gets no part of Bukovina. East Galicia itself goes to Poland by 66.7%, with West Galicia going to Poland by 75%. Austrian Silesia gets split between Poland and Moravia like in our own timeline with a 50% majority, while Moravia itself is part of Czechia with 58.3% and Bohemia by 66.7%. You did let Austria keep the Sudetenland with 58.3%, creating these awful borders. Regarding Bosnia and Herzegovina, you were split 50-50 whether it should be part of Yugoslavia or independent, and so independence it is. Regarding Dalmatia, you chose by a 50% majority for Italy to get its promised territories, and again with 50% for Italy to get Istria. Regarding Slovenia, you were extremely divided, but by 33.3%, you chose for Austria to get it. When it comes to Tyrol, you preferred the historical boundaries to be implemented with a 41.7% plurality. Lastly, Austria keeps Vorarlberg by 66.7% and Carinthia by 75%. So overall, Austria got a much lighter deal, being able to keep modern-day Slovenia and the Sudetenland, but their treatment was not to the same level as Germany was. Up next is Hungary. The first territorial concession Hungary is forced to make is to give the ethnic German Burgenland to Austria. 75% of you voted for Hungary to keep the ethnic Hungarian southern Slovakia, and 50% of you also voted for Hungary to keep Bratislava. You were split 41.7% for both Slovakia becoming independent and 41.7% for Hungary to get Slovakia. Arguably, the less historical path is the second one, and so Hungary keeps Slovakia. Carpathian Ruthenia would also go to Hungary with 58.3%. Transylvania would remain in its entirety with Hungary with 41.7% voting in favor of that, meaning Romania got once again nothing. Regarding the Banat, you were split 41.7% each, whether Hungary gets it, or whether it gets split like in our own timeline, and so I have to give it to Hungary. Hungary also keeps Baco with a 58.3% majority and Preek merge with 75%. Regarding Croatia-Slavonia, you voted 2/3 for it to gain independence, but with the caveat that Fum goes to Italy. So overall, Hungary only lost Croatia-Slavonia, which was the most autonomous part of the kingdom and the Burgenland. So overall, Hungarian territorial integrity is mostly preserved. Next is Bulgaria. 2/3 of you wanted Bulgaria to keep its western border regions. It lost to Serbia in our own timeline. As for the south, you were split 50-50 whether it or Greece gets it, and so Bulgaria keeps southern Thrace as well. Just as it seemed like Bulgaria leaves Paris completely intact, you voted 50-50 whether it becomes a part of Yugoslavia or not, and so Bulgaria is added to the kingdom of Serbs and Bulgarians, or later Yugoslavia. Bulgaria wouldn't have to give up any territories, but would instead lose its sovereignty, as it is forced into a union with Serbia. Last, but not least, the Ottoman Empire. North Yemen and Asir would both become a part of Hejaz with 50 and 66.7% of you voting in favor of that, while 75% of you wanted Hejaz to stay independent. 75% of you also wanted Transjordan to remain independent under Arab rule. Regarding Palestine, you were very divided, which doesn't really surprise me all that much, and a tie opened up with a third of you wanted full Arab control, and another third division into an Arab and a Jewish state. Going with the non-historical part, Palestine too is ruled by Arabs. Regarding Lebanon, you once again wanted it to become an independent Arab state, with 41.7% in favor. Coastal Syria and Jebel al-Druze remain with Syria with 58.3% for the coastal part and a staggering 100% for Jebel al-Druze. Syria, you guessed it, is independent under Arab rule with 2/3 of you in favor. That same margin also wanted Arab independence in Basra, while a 45.5% plurality wanted independence for Baghdad. Only when it came to Mosul did you prefer the indirect British rule instead of full independence. 3/4 of you wanted the so far liberated and independent Arab territories to be united, creating this super state in the Middle East. With the blessing of 2/3 of you, a fully independent Kurdish state would be created in modern-day Syria, Iraq, and Turkey. This finally brings us to Turkey itself. In the east, you voted in favor of creating Wilsonian Armenia with 50% in favor. Regarding Cilicia, you didn't know whether the Turks or the French would get it, and so it goes to the Turks. In southern Anatolia, Greece would massively expand into the coastal regions thanks to a 2/3 majority. 3/4 of you also wanted them to take Smyrna, 2/3 for East Thrace, 58.3% for the Straits, and another 58.3% Constantinople. The only place you didn't give Greece was the Turkish Black Sea coast, where 58.3% of you wanted it to go fully to Turkey. Lastly, you were divided whether Turkey should be an independent state or a client state of the British, and so a British client it is. Overall, the treatment the Turks got is, depending on how you see it, harsher or more lenient than Sever's, which means an independence war is likely to follow, but that is a topic for next week. The British and French, meanwhile, were denied colonies in the Middle East, bearing British mandates in Mosul and Anatolia. Overall, most Central Powers got a better deal than in our own timeline, with Germany, Austria and Hungary larger, Bulgaria larger, but no longer sovereign, and only the Turks in a bad position. The United Kingdom and France failed to make any colonial gains in Africa and only minor ones in the Middle East. Meanwhile, Japan and Italy got most of what they wanted. Don't forget to tune in next week for the aftermath of these post-war boundaries. If you liked the episode, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe. Goodbye.